In this video, we're going to introduce the filter function. Up until this point, whenever we needed to filter something, we would come in here, we would highlight the data we want to filter, and then we go up there and press this filter icon. And then we could come in here and filter by lot number, seller, price, buyer number, or whatever we want to do. Well, we're actually going to introduce an equals filter function. So that equals filter function can come in really handy at times because it automatically filters things as they come in. So let's just kind of see how an equals filter function works. So we're going to say we're going to keep all these the same. We're going to keep these titles the same. And in this case, we want to know, first off, who or what all the lot numbers that, let's say for example, triple R sold. We want to separate all of these animals out. Actually, triple R is not a good one. We want to separate them all out by R squared. We want to know which lot numbers R squared sold and at what price and what the buyer numbers were. So we're going to use this function called equals filter. F-I-T-L-E-R. Open parenthesis. Then the first thing you have to highlight is the range. So you highlight this range, and then you say, comma, and then the next thing it asks is the condition. So the condition in this case is that the seller, we're going to say the seller equals, now we're typing in text, and anytime you type in text into a formula, you have to put that text in quotations. So we're going to filter this by R squared. Close quotation, close parenthesis, and press enter. What it does is just like a filter button works up here, is it's going to pull out all of the R squared names. We look through here, we say 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, we have 104. The next one is 111, and then as we see here, the next one is 109 and then 112. And we can see that not only does it pull those numbers out, but it keeps them in the exact same order in which they appear. So if we wanted this to be in chronological order here, we cannot now come in here and try to filter this by, say, A to Z. It will not work because it's trying to pull it directly off of this information. We'd have to first sort this in chronological order. But that's essentially how you use a filter function. So we saw it on the same sheet here, but you can actually add a brand new sheet. So let's see how that would look if we added a brand new sheet. So we're going to call this the filter sheet. And then up here, we're going to say, we want to say equals, go back to VLOOKUP, lot number. We're going to drag this across where we have lot number, seller, price, and buyer number. We're going to use that filter function again. We're going to say filter. We want to get that range again. So we're going to highlight this whole range. Being sure to exclude these titles up here because we already have the titles in here. Then we have that first condition. So we want the first condition to be, we want the seller, in this case we want it to equal uno R. And then close parenthesis. Now we have all of the uno R's showing up. Now let's say we want to get a little bit more particular with it. What if, for example, we have 100 uno R's here, but now we want to identify a little bit more, and we want to identify certain things about it. So let's go ahead and see what I'm talking about here. We're going to include these lot numbers again, and we're going to say equals filter, just like we have before. We're going to go to VLOOKUP, highlight this data, just like what we've been doing this whole time so far. And then a thing to notice is it says condition 1 and condition 2. So we're going to go ahead and identify condition 1 as having to equal uno R, just like we have before. But we're going to go ahead and add a second condition. And the second condition is that the price at which they sold, we want to know how many did they sell at a price of, say, less than $800. And then we could even add in a third condition if we wanted to, but in this case we don't. So we're just going to go ahead and do that. So now we see that they sold 3 animals at less than, say, $800. So we could actually add in a third condition, and let's go ahead and do that. We're going to go ahead and add in a third condition, and we're going to say that the buyer number, so in this case it would be, I'm just going to type in the formula so that way I don't have to go back to it, VLOOKUP, exclamation point, and then that's going to be of a range of G, actually that'll be a range of H2, because we're now looking at buyer number, to H14, and we want that to be less than, let's say 1,050. And we see that all 3 of these are less than 1,050. So let's go ahead and adjust that a little bit more. And let's say that's 1,040. And it will take off that third one. So it first filters by whether or not it's coming from this seller, then by price, and then by buyer number. And you can add as many conditions as you want. Now something that I'm going to show you real quick is right now we have this looking up from row 2 to row 14, coming out of a column of row 2 to row 14. What if we adjusted this to say row 12? It throws off this NA, and as we hover over it, it says filter has missed match range, expected row count of 11, column row count 1, actual row count 13, column row count 1. What that's meaning is, as we can see here, we have a expected row count of 11 from 2 to 12, and if we counted them up, that'd be 11. But what we got was a row count of 13 from 2 to 14. So if we don't have these row counts right, it's actually not going to come out right. So let's go ahead and add that back into 14. Now we get everything kind of running right. Let's go ahead and adjust this one. Now let's say, we're going to keep that still at 14, but let's make this G, to where it's now 2 columns. Again, it throws off an error sign saying filter range must be a single row or a single column, meaning we can't have this 2 column deal going on here. So we have to keep it the same number of rows, 2 to 14, 2 to 14, and we have to have 1 column that we're searching out of. Now I want to go ahead and show you one last thing. So let's say we want to go ahead and filter something out, but instead of it being, say, R squared, we're just going to call it R. It starts throwing off this NA, so no matches are found in filter evaluation, meaning there was nothing here that just said R. Well, that kind of lends itself to something. Whenever you're working with these data sheets, and whenever you're working with, say, filter icons or filter deals, you want to make sure you keep all of your data uniform. You want to make sure that you're spelling everything correctly and keeping everything in line. Otherwise, you could miss a number or 2 here or there. One way, and now this isn't going to be actually on your assignment, but one way to kind of keep data the same is by a data validation. So I'm going to throw up in a data validation right here in this cell, for example. So I'm going to say data, and then come down here to data validation, and then it has the cell range, so that's just that random cell that I clicked on. You can change it by clicking on whatever cell you want. Then it says list of range, list of items, number, text, date, custom formula. You can kind of play with these and see what they all do. This one, it allows you to select from a range of cells. This one you can actually type in the items that I'll show you that. This one means it must be a number. This one means it must be a text. This one must be a date. You can make a custom formula if you want. So we're going to do a list of items. So we're going to go ahead and do R squared, comma, and we're separating them out by commas. Another one that we're going to have is triple R. And then we have, I believe, also uno R. And then we click save. And now we have this little drop down menu that we can select from. And if you wanted to get really important with this, if this was a very important deal that you had to have the right information on, and we go back up to data validation, it's pulling up that same one, we could actually say reject input and click save. And it actually deleted my stuff, so I'm going to go ahead and come right here. I have to click on that cell. We're going to go back to data validation. There's all the correct information. We're going to say reject input and say save. So now if I come in here and try to type in an A, it throws off a warning, meaning that I cannot do that, that I have to have that data validation, or the correct value in there. But I can come in here and say type in R, and it gives me a suggestion box. So data validation can often be a very important aspect whenever you're dealing with something like filter. So hopefully this video helps you on that filter function for that assignment.